In today's episode, we're joined by Sebastian from Rillavoice. If you haven't heard about it yet, Rillavoice is an amazing tool that's changing the way businesses talk to their customers. It's all about understanding what your customers really feel, thanks to smart voice analytics. Imagine being able to know exactly what your customers need just by the tone of their voice. Sebastian's here to tell us all about how Rillavoice makes this possible and why it's a must-have for any business focused on great customer service. Let's dive in and learn more about this platform and how it's making a real difference in customer conversations.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us on a very special edition of the One SEO podcast. I have a very unique gentleman here today, the one and the only Sebastian Jimenez. Sebastian, what's up, brother? How are you?
How you doing, Bernie? Thank you for having me on here today. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you here because you guys have what I think, aside from what we do here at One SEO, is literally the coolest shit happening right now in the home service industry with Rillavoice. I think the product's awesome. I think that I think your sales reps should be making millions of dollars because of how cool it is. And I think it's
there they are, man. They're making that money right
behind you, dude. Yeah, I love it, man. So I mean, everybody knows who you are if they go to trade shows, but we have a lot of people in our database that don't get out of the truck very much. So why don't you do everybody a favor and tell them, who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Sebastian Jimenez. I am the founder and CEO of this company called Rillavoice. Rillavoice is the leading speech analytics software for home services. What that means is when your technicians or your comfort advisors, your consultants, when they go out and they talk to homeowners in the home, they record their conversations from their phones or tablets with the Rilla mobile app. And then we use AI to automatically transcribe, analyze, and give them feedback to help them improve their sales. That's what we do.
Which is incredible. When you started, when did you guys first start with the speech analytics and in home? Tell me about when did that all start for you guys? Like when did it kind of get off the ground?
We started working in Rilla in middle of 2019, but we didn't make a single sale until January 2022. So it was almost 3 years of nothing and misery and lowliness and darkness, and our parents telling us, go back and get a job. Like I told you, you're an idiot. And so we started in 2019, but we started selling in January 2022.
No, who's laughing now, Mom?
She still doesn't get it. She's like, she's like, when we were featured on Forbes one time, and I guess she was happy that day. She told her friends that her son was covered he was featured on the cover of the New York Times. And I'm like, wrong newspaper, Mom. But we'll take it. Whatever, man. We'll take the compliment.
At least she's proud. Is it a situation? Yeah. If somebody asks your mom what you do, is she going to say, yeah, he works with computers or something like that?
She says, my son is willfully unemployed. That's what she says to people.
Right.
I don't have a job. She's like, when she comes to the office, she's like, this is not real. This is some scam. Like, what are you selling drugs? Like, what are you doing? She doesn't get it. I'm from the Dominican Republic. Tech startups is not like a thing that we use in our lingo down there. It's like it's very foreign, completely.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't get it, but she knows we're doing well in some kind of.
It's like computer space out there in the void, just doing really well, like recording people.
Yeah. She knows we're doing well, so that's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you guys are doing well. Your customers are doing well too, right?
Yes. Our customers, when they do well, we do very well. We have, I said we started selling January 2022. We went from like 0 to over 400 contractors in a very short amount of time. And not only did we grow our sales cycle, like we grew our sales and we started getting new customers. The biggest thing for me is our retention is really high. Like, after a year or two of using Rilla, our customers stick with using Rilla at a very high rate, and they spend more with Rilla because they upsell, they add more salespeople, more technicians into the platform, which is something that's really exciting. And the only reason why they do that is because they see like there's massive benefits. If you guys go on our website, I mean, there's like one customer that we had, long home products. They sell all sorts of home products and services. The testimonial was like they increased their average annual revenue per rep by $350,000, right? So per rep per year, $350,000 additional, because we do all these cases with our customers where we where we basically A/B test with Rilla versus not with Rilla, and you see how your reps do.
Yeah.
And it's just a dramatic improvement. So yes.
Yeah, well, obviously, people are doing good. If you're owning the business, it's one thing to kind of buy it and then roll it out in your company. How do like the sales guys take to it? Are any of them like, are they
Oh yeah,
they jump in, they resistant? Like what? How does that kind of go?
all the time. So like whenever we launch Rilla, it happens every single time without a doubt. What happens is you usually get resistance from the top 20% of your team.
Yeah.
The top 20% of your team, your top performers, they absolutely hate this. They do not like this at all. The product is by design a product that is meant to share what the top performers do, right? And share it with everybody else in the team. That's what the product's designed to do.
Yeah.
To identify how your top performers talk, how fast, how slow, how much do they talk versus the customer, how much do they interact with their customers, and what they say specifically. Do they do the good, better, best? Do they talk about building rapport for 5 minutes? What do they talk about? And it literally looks at the science of their conversations and shares that science with everybody else. So of course, the top performers do not like this at the beginning, because it literally finds out what their secret sauce is and shares it. And they're like, I'm competing for leads with my teammates because we now have smart dispatch where you give the best leads, the best performers. Why the hell would I want to give what I learned to the rest of my team? So that's a mentality at the beginning, which is, we are used to it. Everybody else in the middle, they're kind of like, they're somewhat concerned, but they're not as, they're not as insanely like reactive as the top performers. And then people at the bottom and people who are new, that's who kind of launches it seamlessly. Because the people who are new, they don't know any better. This is just the expectation. This is what we do in this business.
Yeah.
And then the people who are at the bottom, what ground do they have to stand on to tell you that they're not going to do anything?
Yeah.
That they're not going to record. I mean, they're going to do it because otherwise, they're getting the boot. And so what happens is after a month of using Rilla, the bottom performers and the new performers, they get massively better at selling or at hitting their KPIs if you're a technician. Top performers take notice. They're like, oh my God, this is here. I'm competing for leads anyways. And these people are now have a massive advantage over me, which is they have the supercomputer in their pocket that's helping them improve. And after that month, everybody gets on board because they're like, okay. And then usually the top performers, when they get on board, they're the type of people that once they get over this fear and this reaction, they are also the top performing users of Rilla because they want to get better. So they also improve by 15, 20%, right? Yeah. So after a month, but the friction's there. It's inevitable. You're going to have that friction, whatever you do.
I was thinking about that too. I was like, dude, if I walked into a new company and I was like, let's just say Sebastian is like the top sales rep and like I could see that he's ringing the bell, he's got a belt, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, great, I had this software that would help me be like Sebastian. But if I'm Sebastian, I'm like, I don't want fucking Bernie copying off me.
You don't want that.
Like, I don't even know this guy.
But you know what you fear more than Bernie copying you is Bernie becoming better than you. And
Exactly.
And so that becomes a real kind of incentive. And because it works, and it does work every single time. What I tell people to kind of like, if they want to know what it's like to launch Rilla, just watch the movie Moneyball. Nice. It's the exact same thing. You watch the movie Moneyball. When you bring out this concept of we're going to use data science to play the sports better, you're going to find a lot of friction, a lot of reaction because it's different. It's way different than what we're used to.
Yeah.
And once you implement it, it works, and it kind of like makes you a much better team. So it's kind of inevitable that you're going to have to get on board with it. Because if you're not doing it and you don't go through the friction, your competitors go through the friction, and then they're, getting 50%, 60%, 100% better at selling.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to get less callback. They're going to increase the market share. You're going to get less, whatever replacements are available in the area. It's more likely that they get them, not you. So it's just an inevitable thing that we think is going to have to happen.
Yeah.
You just have to know how to get over the friction.
Yeah. But what Billy Beane did was he traded his best player to get everybody else on board. So to send them in the movie. But aside from that, that was my, so the product itself. So obviously there's friction in the onboarding side of things.
Yes.
But we all know why something like this is important, because it gives you more data, more analytics, more things to look at and use to make decisions in terms of sales, in-home selling, evaluating reps, all that kind of stuff. Talk to me about like what your best performing, your customers, how do they take this information? Like it can't be easy for a guy who barely works his laptop to kind of understand Rilla and onboard it. How do they take to it usually? What's the process like? What kind of information is it readily apparent, the information you see there? And why is it important?
Yeah, so it depends for which type of user. So if we're talking about a technician, right? A technician is going to use Rilla on the go, on their car, in the mobile app, usually in their phone or tablet.
Mhm.
And the data is very simple for them. It's green or yellow. Are you doing this well, or are you not doing it well? That's
Yeah.
pretty much it. And
Yeah.
what Rilla does is essentially it understands who the top performers in a team are. And it basically looks at what the top performers say in a conversation and how they say it specifically.
Yeah.
So that when it compares the conversational patterns, it says to you, hey, listen, your talk ratio is how much you talk versus the customer. Your talk ratio, Steve, is at 70% when the top performers talk ratio is at 45. You need to lower your talk ratio to put yourself within that range the top performers are at if you want to be like them, right? So it's like literally green or yellow. Is your talk ratio green within the range, or it's outside of the range where you're not actually performing like the top performers? Is your talk sheet green, or is it yellow? Is the amount of time that you're spending building rapport with a customer, is it green or is it yellow? And then you want to kind of go to your yellow and go and make them green.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the only, for the technicians, it's very, very simple, kind of like a red light, green light kind of thing.
Nice. Okay. And then, well, it's good for like any service business, right? Anybody that's going to be
Yes.
doing selling. Are there any people like who need this kind of software more than others? Like there's HVAC, plumbing, roofing, all these different things. Tell me about like which one of those industries, like, or even if it's not one I mentioned, is like really just every time they get it, it's fucking on. They're just off to the races and things are great.
I mean, we have like customers in like so many different verticals. Like we've got like dog sitters who use Rilla.
No
like
way.
dog sitting. Yeah. You would. Dude, dog sitting is such an insane market because people are willing to spend more in their dogs than their own kids, man. Like they take them to these dog trading centers. They'll pay $5,000 for the service, man. It's literally it's like a really high average ticket sale. It's the same thing, a sales process. You have to like look at multiple bids. So we have a lot of different verticals, right? It really is that, if you have in-home salespeople or in-home service people who are out there servicing customers, and you care about your brand standards, you care about what they're saying, you have some sort of coaching system that they're supposed to follow. That's kind of what makes for a really, really good Rilla customer. If you have those kind of things already in your business set up, and you're to the point that you can fine tune your coaching already, that's when Rilla is really helpful. If you have no process, you have no sales process yet, and you don't have a kind of a standardized way of doing things, then Rilla is not going to be that helpful. But once you have that mold, then Rilla helps you make that mold better than what it is. So you have to have a certain level of scale and a certain level of structure to get a lot of value from a tool like Rilla.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's the same thing when you talk to like service titans, even marketing companies like us. The more well put together you are on your side, the more equipped you are, the better it's going to be for you.
There's a lot of things that have to go right in a business before they can even decide that they're going to have a ride-along process, that they're going to go out and do ride-alongs with their techs. First, you have to have hired techs, right? So that you can do it. Like a lot of businesses, a large percentage of the market, it's just like single operators, right? Single operators are not going to get value from Rilla at all. Maybe like a transcription, a summary, whatever. But they're not going to get a lot of value from Rilla because what data, how are we going to figure out how you compare the top performers in your team? There's no top performers, it's just you. How are we going to scale this virtual ride along? Because you don't have to do virtual ride alongs with yourself. You're already there with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you have a really small team, you're just getting around like your marketing and your leads. Like when you're starting as a business, you should really dial in your marketing to get leads so that you can even worry about your conversion rate, right?
Yeah.
But once you get to that point and you're worrying about your conversion rate, that's usually when you have like at least 5 technicians that you're trying to scale. That's when you're starting to do ride alongs. That's when you're starting to like kind of actually devote time and energy and resources to really make sure that what you created as a business owner can scale as you hire more people. If you're not even there as a business owner, you should not even consider launching with a tool like Rilla because it's just going to be a waste of money.
Yeah, I understand. And well, when it comes to like a tool like Rilla, let's take a step back real quick, and because we just kind of jumped right in, and I apologize for that. But
It's all good, man. It's all good.
When we're thinking about like these kinds of tools and everything, why is this something worth considering? Why is like speech analytics, why? It's just aside from like, I know sales is like king, right? Sales, it helps the sales process.
Yeah.
But like as like let's say a business intelligence kind of person, and I pointed to myself as if I am and I'm not, but as a business intelligence kind of thing, like sales operations, that kind of stuff, why is like even considering something like this a viable option?
Dude, I'll answer this in two ways. So I'll answer a really specific, and then I'll answer a more broad, general kind of like, why should you be implementing AI in your business? So let me answer the first way. So why consider someone like Rilla? You're a team. You have 5 salespeople, 10 salespeople. You've hired a sales manager, or you're managing them yourselves. It's the analogy that we give when you have this situation in home services typically is that you have a sport that people are playing where there's a coach that can coach people and give them feedback, and you go over kind of like one-on-one meetings, and you go over maybe like you do role play, and you teach people how to handle objections. You do a lot of coaching and training, and you track results, right? You know if they're winning the games and losing the games. But one thing you can't do is you can't be on the field to see what's actually happening in the game. That's like if we told Bill Belichick or Phil Jackson, one of these great coaches, like, we're going to let you coach your players, track results, but we're not going to let you be in the court side, in the field when the game is going on. You can't give directions. You can't give feedback. You can't review the game film of the game after the game. You're kind of in the dark as to what the hell happened, in game time. Imagine telling a coach that. How the hell do you expect them to coach in any other sport? But we've somehow accepted that that is the reality of in-home sales. It's like, oh, yeah, you do a ride along once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. You see like maybe 2% of the totality of the appointments. And based on that, you're going to make your predictions about what you need to do to actually improve your team.
Yeah.
It's impossible. You would not have had the Chicago Bulls without game film. You would not have had, the Patriots without game film. This is adding game film to the number one game that you're playing in your business. All of your revenue is coming from this in-home conversation. Your entire top line and bottom line has to go through this in-home conversation, which you have no access to, right? So forget about sales. Forget about sales for a minute, the conversion rates and all of that. Think about just your brand. You track everything in your marketing, your SEO, how's your copy online, how's your website. And when you have the most critical conversation with your customer, your call center, you're already recording that, making sure that your CSRs are staying on point, on script, representing your brand fairly. But when it goes to the home, which is the most important conversation, that's going to determine whether you're going to get a $20,000 replacement or a $100 repair, or whether you're going to piss off a customer and turn him off for life and give it to the competition, then we accept that, oh, we don't have access to that. That's a black box. No, that's why you need to be thinking about something like this if you're at that level of scale, because otherwise it's not going to be possible to become one of the world-class teams now that this is a possibility, right? Before, nobody had access to it. Now they do. If somebody's doing it and you're not, they have a coach on the field every single time that your reps are talking to somebody and you have nobody. You're Wild West. They're kind of using Moneyball to analyze their sales results. That's why you need to consider Rilla, really. Forget about the sales and all of those things. It's about your brand. It's about the sales. It's about the service. It's about the fact when a customer gets pissed off, you have access to protect yourself and your company and to make sure that you are actually being fair. You get a call back, a customer's not happy, you can go right to the conversation and say, oh my God, this is not, you were totally right. Or, hey, listen, Mrs. Homeowner, you're actually wrong here. Our consultant did nothing wrong here. Our technician explained everything. He didn't try to push anything onto you. He gave you the options. You decided to go with this one because it's better for your home, right? It's all about that. So why should you consider, beyond Rilla, why should you consider adopting AI in your business, right? So Rilla is just like one little part of a broader movement of AI coming after home services. AI is the biggest disruption that we have ever faced as a human species. It's bigger than the internet. It's bigger than, the wheel. It's bigger than agriculture. It's really, really big. Because for the first time, we are starting to contend with the fact that we might have created something that's smarter than ourselves, right? It's the only species that might be smarter than us.
Yeah.
It's a Homo artificialis, if you want to call it, right? And that's really deep implications, right? And right now what's happening, because of a lot of different factors, is companies like mine that are producing AI products for business applications, we're not going after, tech companies. I don't sell to tech companies. There's other tools, there's Avoca.ai, right? There's other tools for automating your dispatch, right? There's a lot of AI software that's specifically targeting home service contractors because of this fundamental moment in time that we find ourselves in the economy. Interest rates are really high. People moved into their homes because of COVID, right? And so they're working out of home. There's a gold mine of sales happening in the home, and more than ever before. And so startups are taking notice. And so we're bringing business applications, AI applications to home services. And so what's happening now is that kind of home service contractors are being forced to contend with the fact that they're not going to be the laggards of this technology adoption. They're going to have to be the early adopters. Why? Because your competitors are being the early adopters. If the competitors are the early adopters and you stay behind, well, then they're going to take over the market share. You cannot afford to not take the risk, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say. It's like, first, Rilla, it's important because you need to see what's happening in the field. Otherwise, you're not actually being responsible about your business. Second is you need to start considering AI because you don't have the opportunity not to anymore. You have to start beyond Rilla. Start really paying close attention to AI business applications because they're actually coming and they're here in home services. They're not far away. It's not like a 10-year gap or a 20-year gap where you have 20 years to figure out CRMs, 20 years to figure out SEO.
Yeah.
You're going to have to figure it out in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
I'm ready to run through a fucking wall right now after that.
Let's hope that there's a good AI application, once you run through that wall.
Yeah, I'm gonna run to fix me up, whatever. Dude, that was sick. Yeah. So in case anybody's wondering, that's why you need to have AI in your business and you need to trust it. People think about AI, especially when I talk to contractors, and even when we first started kind of putting content out about it, when it started to get big around ChatGPT,
yeah,
out of the conversation, the feedback we would get is like they think they're basically dealing with Skynet. You know what I mean? And then it's going to replace them. But what it really does, and I'm stating the obvious here, for us, maybe not for everybody else, but it's more like a tool in your belt. It's something that you use to take yourself from like point A to point B, as opposed to replacing your text or replacing all these other things. AI's biggest functionality right now is on the support side.
Well, let me stop there. AI will replace large sections of the economy, and some of your jobs will completely get replaced.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. But for the plumbers and all out there, 100%.
So the plumbers are not going to be replaced. So for instance, CSRs, right?
Yeah.
There's a tool called Avoca.ai. Everybody go look it up. Avoca.ai. Their mission is to replace your call center with AI, right? So I want people, like, I don't want to say to people, it's like, oh no, it's not going to replace. It is going to replace certain parts of your entire kind of operation. The problem is, like, think about your Avoca. What they do is you call the call center, right? Yeah. And it answers the phone, and it sounds like a human being. It quacks like a human being. It responds like a human being, but it's not a human being. It's an AI agent that's transcribing the conversation into text, feeding it to some large language model like ChatGPT, taking the text and putting it into speech, text to speech, and it happens all in real time, and it responds like a human being can, right? Mm-hmm. Avoca is an early stage company. We have already customers that are using them to automate, not their entire process yet. They're using it for their, for their late night calls where they can't have somebody answering the call 24/7, right? They're using it for their confirmations, for their cancellations. It's still early, right? But it's working for these early stage use cases, right? Now, you fast forward 3 months, 6 months, a year, AI is progressing really, really fast. Avoca is getting better every day. It's not insane for me to assume that Avoca can get to a point where they can actually fully automate your call center. And if you're not one of the early adopters that was the first to adopt, and you're kind of like in this wait and see stage, and your main competitor in your market is using an automated call center that answers the call every single time, every single day without skipping a beat. It doesn't take vacation. It doesn't have a family. It doesn't, have any benefits. It doesn't get sick. It's just answering the call 24/7, exactly like your top performer would, on script, on dial, every single time. You're now competing with a supercomputer. And meanwhile, you have yourself or your office manager like still answering half the calls. You're not answering late at night. You're not answering weekends. You're not answering every call on script. That's what you have to contend with. And so what I want to tell people is, like, that's my point about AI. It's like, it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable, right? Because it's scary. There's some jobs that are going to get replaced, right?
Yeah.
That's what's going to have, just like we had, when cars came out, there was jobs that were replaced. There was no more chariot riders, right? Yeah. Being employed, right? You know what I mean? There will be replacement of jobs. But as business owners, you will have to contend with the facts, like, what do I do? Do I take the disruption and I roll with it, or do I stay kind of in paralysis because of fear and allow myself to be disrupted, right? You don't want to be disrupted, right? What disruption looks like is, look at all the headlines in retail, what's happening because of Amazon's disrupting the hell out of everybody. You don't want to be caught in the wrong side of the disruption, right? That means going out of business. So that's my thing.
Great perspective. You don't want to be disrupted. You want to be the disruptor, right?
Yeah. Nobody likes being disrupted. It sucks, man.
It's super uncomfortable to be disrupted, and it's super uncomfortable to think about firing Jenny or letting her go because she's been there forever, because now she is replaced, because whoever up the street is using the supercomputer to answer the phones and book jobs just like your top performers are, et cetera. So it is super uncomfortable, and it is coming. That's what you mean.
Oh yeah. It's like there's no comfortable solution here. It's either you take the discomfort of applying the disruptive technology and exploring it and testing it and failing, because it's not going to work from right at the get-go. You know, you're going to implement a book. It's not going to work completely 100% just like your human CSRs. But hey, if somebody takes the laborious task of actually improving it and making it better and testing it and failing it and testing it and failing it and making it work, my God, man, when they do get it to work and you're still behind, kind of like wait and see motion, they they're going to be at a massive advantage. And so it's either you take the discomfort of applying the disruption, or you take the discomfort of being disrupted in a few years. So the discomfort of being disrupted is much harder.
You got a choice you got to make, especially if you're uncomfortable with it out of the gate here. The whole AI idea. It's crazy, dude. I talk to people all the time, and a lot of them aren't even using like little things like maybe chatbots on their sites, or people don't even have a service titan or a CRM. They might get blown completely out of the water.
That's another thing that it's like, because you look at this, right? So every technology that comes out, right? There's like an adoption curve, right? There's the early adopters that, like all the people who were building websites in the 1990s, right? Pets.com, diapers.com, people buying shit off of the internet, right? So usually weirdos and like kind of like people in Silicon Valley, early adopter people, right? Think of who was like buying DVDs and Netflix in like 1990s, like weirdos who wanted to watch old movies and not leave their home, right? But the early adopters, they test out all the kinks, they test out all the bugs. After a few years, then the technologies from Silicon Valley emerge into mass market and more people start adopting it. And then after 10 or 15 or 20 years, the late adopters and the laggards finally come ahead. This is what has happened in home services typically with CRM. CRM is a technology that was developed since the 1990s. Then you had Service Titan come out, right? It's like late 2000s, early 2010s, and they started growing. And still, 20 years later, after CRMs became available to humanity, we still have contractors who have not hopped on that bandwagon yet. They're 20 years late, right? Which is fine when you are dealing with technologies where you have 20 years to wait. AI is not like that. AI, first of all, is coming after home improvement contractors first. It's not coming after tech companies. So the early stage of the curve is actually home improvement contractors because of a lot of market conditions. And it's moving faster than anything before. You don't have 15 years, 20 years to wait for the technology to get better. You literally have like maybe like a year or two.
Yeah.
And so like it's like, and it is a really big shift, because every single time that we've seen it, it's like, okay, I had time to be the laggard. Now we don't. And so the contractors who are not even on CRM yet, they're going to be at a massive disadvantage, because if you don't have really good systems of record that can integrate with all these new AI systems, you're going to be at a disadvantage, right? So it's like, forget about AI. It's a movement to start trying to become more comfortable with adopting new technologies, period. Because if you don't have a CRM and you're going to try to implement something with AI, you're not even there yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I hear it all the time, man. People, especially some of the smaller guys that I'll talk to, they want to, and I'm not bashing anybody at all, but it's a lot of times it's like a money thing, right? They don't want to spend money. They don't see value on some things like pay-per-click and stuff. But then when they look at their biggest competitors, they want to be like, who maybe 50% of the time now are owned by a venture capital company, and they're just pounding money into Google ads, like, and blowing them out of the water. Imagine what's good. Like, I'm just like, dude, these guys too are the ones that are probably all in on Rillavoice. They're all in on any kind of new technology that'll help them move forward.
Yeah.
People behind these companies aren't the ones that have turned wrenches their whole lives. They're finance guys, or they're like tech bros. You know what I mean? They're not plumbers like you. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I always like to think of the example of like Tommy Mello, right?
Yeah.
If you think of Tommy Mello, he started A1 Garage like 2006 or 2007, right? Right around the recession period, really. That's when it started. And we're like going into a recession now, which is actually the best opportunity to start trying new things, because the market share that's left open by the, kind of like the big players who are kind of very slow to adopt new things, that market share, there are still homes and there's still problems in people's homes, even though it's still a recession there, the opportunity is still there, right?
Yeah.
So what people like Tommy do is they say, okay, there's a recession, there's opportunity because market share is left open now. What can I do to get ahead, to move faster than the people who are entrenched? What did he do? He got early into online marketing, completely early. He got early into SEO. I met him in New York City. He came to visit. He was showing me videos that he was putting out on YouTube, like in the late 2000s, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
Him filming YouTube videos of him going in and fixing garage doors, putting out content, right? Think about that. Like, he was so early in the curve of online marketing and SEO and call center excellence and sales process excellence. That's how he became, the dominant player that he is today. You
Yeah.
look at the dominant players in home services back in the late 2000s, much different. Like, the landscape looks entirely different than it looks now. There's some people who still remain, right? That are companies that have been around for like 40, 50 years. But a lot of the dominant players, they went out of business because they got disrupted, right?
Yeah.
They got
They were
disrupted by people like Tommy,
Yeah.
right? And so if you're somebody like that, who's like, okay, when there's crisis, I see opportunity. When there's recession, I see market share, right? I see an
Yeah.
opportunity to move faster. That's the people that start adopting the new technologies that are available. And those are the people that enable new business models, new business innovations. And those are the people that take over markets, right? The
Yeah.
early adopter doesn't ask, well, what if it goes wrong, right? Oh, risk averse mentality, laggard mentality. Well, what if the AI doesn't answer the call right? What about the sentiment? What about the emotion? AI can't understand sarcasm. They start they go to the edges to try to be like, what if
Yeah.
what if the AI doesn't know my customer
Yeah.
by their first name, right? Like, all these edge cases. The early adopter doesn't say that. The early adopter says, what if it goes right? I know
Yeah.
it's going to go wrong because it's new. It's going to go wrong. It's going to fail. It's going to be crap. It's going to not work very well at the beginning. But what if it does work? What does
Yeah.
that mean for my business? What would it mean for my business if I could literally automate my entire call center? I could increase my margins, my gross margins as a business, my EBITDA by 10 to 20% because I no longer have a call center cost. I have a server running my call center. I
Yeah.
can answer all my calls. What would it mean for my business if this thing was able to answer every single call perfectly, every single hour of the day? What if it goes right? Right. And then you go from the premise that it's gonna not work and you're gonna try to make, that vision come to a reality. A lot of the times it doesn't work, right? You saw with new technologies like crypto, it was usually a lot of garbage, right? Early adopters got burned because something didn't come out of it. But that's the early adopter mindset. It's like, that some things are going to fail, that not all the new technologies are going to work, but I'm going to get ahead of the curve because if it does work, that's what makes the difference of whether I become the disruptor of the disrupted. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And speaking like kind of in the same space too, that's 100% right. Somebody like you, someone like me that kind of like provides products and services for these kinds of people that are running these companies. There's no better customer than the one that's super excited about it, that doesn't have the risk averse mentality, that is super into like, yo, what can we do with this? How's it gonna help me? And they dive all in. And you know what? That kind of person, you see them all in other places too. And then they have this like loop of things that they're doing. They're just kind of feeding each other, and they're making good decisions, man. And they're kind of
because you can't stop that. And they take risks and they take the L's, right? When they lose, they lose. And they were like, I was wrong, and they learn from that. But then when they're right, they kind of make they make 10x, 100x return, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I screwed up my camera.
Short-term memory. Oh, there you go.
Let me see if I can get it back up and running.
His energy bursted through the webcam.
Yeah. That just blew up, man.
It is the robot, dude. It was AI. Turned you off. What's like, I mean, I know we're coming up against time here, but like one of the last things I want to talk about with you is like, what's the future look like? What does it look like a year from now? In terms like the AI landscape, how it relates to our customers that, we share, like what's next? We now have Rillavoice. We have different tools for even like chats and things like that. What's the next big leap in AI? What do people do? Like, what should they look out for? And do we even know what that is because it's progressing so fast?
So I would say that the big leap in AI has happened, and now we're still dealing with the repercussions. The big leap was that, OpenAI, the company that's founded by Elon Musk and run by Sam Altman now, that company came out with ChatGPT a year ago, and it really changed everything, right? The fact that we have a computer system that can take tests and beat 99% of human beings at things that we thought that only human beings could do. That it can write legal case studies better than lawyers, and it can identify diseases better than doctors. That has happened. It's here. It's now, right?
Yeah.
And what we're dealing with now is, okay, this is here. It's scary. It's exciting because it's an opportunity. It's a risk. Some people are saying that we literally created a new species. Like, there was a historian, and I think it was Niall Ferguson, who said that the aliens are here and we created. That's kind of how people are describing this moment. It's a really moment. Like, people will look back in this moment and say, in 2022, ChatGPT was invented.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know how the history is going to play out, but it's like, this is when the robot uprising started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this has happened. Like we are here. We are in the moment, right? I mean, I think there's still going to be like big advancements in technology. There's going to be AR that's going to come out to the field and stuff like that. That's still going to happen. But right now we're living in this really big moment in time.
Yeah.
And what I could recommend to people, first the mindset, the early adopter mindset. The other thing I would say, it's like, it's not that expensive to fail when you're experimenting, right? So Jeff Bezos has a great quote, which is like, there is no invention without failure. If you're going to do something and it works out 100% of the time, every single time, well, that's not invention. That's just like, you know how to do it. There's no innovation there. There's like, you're not doing anything new, right? Because you're succeeding 100% of the time, right? Innovation requires a certain amount of failure, right? And when you're testing out experiments, right? You can literally test out. You could play with ChatGPT. You can actually try to implement a pilot with somebody like a Voca and try to kind of like test it out for just like a portion of your call center, right? You could start out with Rilla with like a smaller degree of your team, so you don't have to go all out. That's how typically our customers do it. And the tests are not expensive. You're going to spend a couple $1,000s. You're going to spend like $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is, and that's not expensive, right? If it fails, it fails. You just took the L. You gave it a try. You took the L.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, you can get the outsized returns, right? Jeff Bezos followed up the quote with saying, things only get expensive when they work, right?
Yeah.
When Rilla works, that's when our customers start spending the millions of dollars with us, right? When they see it actually working because it becomes part of their workflow, right? You don't spend a lot in marketing unless you know that it actually works, right? And so the experiments themselves, they're not that scary. The cost is not that much. You will live if you fail with the experiment. You will live. You will still be in business. It's more about the mentality. Like, people don't like failure. They don't like the new thing because it might be risky. It might be annoying to try out. And they don't like the feeling like, oh my God, I tried something, it didn't work out. That's just like a mental kind of barrier that you have to get around with, because it's not failing in the new thing with a new experiment. It's not an existential risk ever, because you're never betting the company. If you're betting the company on an experiment, you're doing it wrong. And that means that you're too late. If you're betting the company on an experiment, it means that you have no other option but to go all in because you're too late and you weren't early, right? If you're early and you're testing it out, you have the opportunity to test cheap before it becomes a big threat to your business, right?
Yeah, man.
So experiments are always cheap. So that's kind of the message that I want to give to people. We're in a really big moment in time. It's a really big technology. It has I can tell you the real numbers. It's like 50% increase in conversion rate, 100% increases in average sales. Like, it's really, really powerful, right? What's already happening. But my biggest thing for people, it's like, try to eliminate this like little mental barrier against failure, because it is going to fail. It's going to be clunky. It's going to be buggy. Whatever it is that you do that's new, just know that it's not that expensive, and you will live.
Take the chance. Make the jump.
Yes.
Yeah. Dude, I like that. If you're going all in, you're betting your business on it, you're way too late. Way too late.
If you're making a I'm betting the company on this thing kind of bet, it's like, that's not how you do it.
My eyes crossed. I thought of so many times people had situations like that with me where they were talking about something, they were kind of betting it on. I was like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Because they realize that that's what's going to happen to some businesses who realize that their biggest competitor has implemented a call center that's automated, right? And it's up and running. And now they can't have the luxury of doing this kind of trial and error at the beginning and testing kind of comfortably, because now you got to get the call center up and running in a few days, because otherwise you're going to go out of business.
Yeah.
It's never good to be in a position where you have to bet the company on an experiment. And the best people don't never bet the company on an experiment. They always make bets that they can live with, that they can fail, and they'll be fine because they took the chance. And then from that little chance, they learn, they iterate it. You say, okay, I automated my call center at really late at night. It's still not as good as a human being, but it's still a net positive if it gets it right. So if it gets it wrong, it's no problem, because I wasn't going to get that call anyway.
Yeah.
You find the bugs there and you fine tune there. Once you get really comfortable with that, then you start, okay, let me start testing my automatic call center on, the confirmation appointments. Let's start taking a little bit more risk, right? And then all of a sudden, after a process of trial and error, after a few months or a year, then you find yourself with a fully automated call center.
Yeah.
That's how I would encourage people to treat this, with risks that you can live with, right? That would be my main advice for people.
Fantastic, Sebastian. Dude, you brought the heat today. I appreciate it. Big moment in time in the industry, big moment in the One SEO podcast, brother. I'm really glad to have you here today.
This was fun, man. I'm
that was
happy to be
great.
back here. This was amazing.
Yeah, if they want to find you, really, I mean, we're gonna have links in the email that they find this in, and just get ready to buckle up because when we put this on Facebook, anytime we talk about AI, the comments just like, oh, especially when we like
Yeah.
advertise it. So buckle up. But if people want to find you or they want to talk to you, what do they do?
They go to rillavoice.com. That's RILLA voice.com. And you click on the book a demo link. And that'll put you in touch with one of our highly trained sales consultants who have been trained with the latest in AI technology. And you
Yeah,
tell us how we did.
that's great. And if you want to see Sebastian personally, just throw a rock at any trade show. I'm pretty sure he's going to be there.
Yes. Yes.
All right, dude. Well, awesome, man. It was great having you today. If I don't talk to you before the new year, happy New Year, happy holidays. It was great seeing you again.
Amazing, man. Glad to be here. Thank you, Bernie.
See you, brother.